right, go ahead, Bob.
I bring the Parks and Recreation Committee to order and turn it over to Amy.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. The first item on the agenda is review of Parks and Recreation Workshop recommendations. I just briefly wanted to follow up the workshop that was held on March 30th, 2023 with Dr. Bob Brookover from Clemson University. In that workshop, we kind of looked at where we were now, where we wanted to be and how we got there. So on the screen, Beth has put up some of the recommendations that he had sent to me. There were just a couple I wanted to highlight. The first one, and actually before I even highlight those, I want to say there are quite a few of these that we at least touched or addressed in this coming budget cycle. So I'm very excited for those projects. But one is to pursue partnerships and begin planning and site identification for an indoor sports complex. His recommendation based off of the conversation that we've had with him was 6 basketball courts, an indoor walking track, and associated support amenity spaces. He recommended we begin the planning process as soon as possible, as the planning and development would take some significant time as well. So that was one I wanted to draw council's attention to, see if there was any additional thoughts or ideas.
Bob, if I could, Amy, what is the plan on that? Are y'all gonna try to bring a committee together that would, I guess, include the school district, the county, ourselves, citizenry, particularly those in the Gadsden community, to look at what is possible where?
Yes, we have not done that yet, but if that's something council wants us to pursue, Parks and Recreation Committee could certainly look into doing.
I think based on what I understand of the timeline that we may or may not have on the potential funding source, if that were to become a reality, time is probably our biggest enemy. And so how fast we're able to get a group together and a group to start moving us in a direction that allows us to do something, I think will be critical once we hear from the county.
Yes, sir.
Do I
Another.
hear a motion for that? Is the committee there?
Yes, sir. He's asking if there's a motion for the Parks and Recreation Committee to put together a committee with key interested parties, the school district, the town, and members of the community to look at the potential for a sports complex.
I will make that motion.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye. Did we have a second? Was that a second? Did you make, Mr. Brown? Okay.
Done.
And what I understand, Aaron doesn't have his mic on. So Bob can't hear.
Have him turn off.
I was simply saying that it's, from what I understand about it's a pretty comprehensive piece of money you have to spend. So we probably need some long-term thinking.
Yes, sir. A couple other things that I just wanted to quickly point out. One of the other recommendations was identify a site and begin planning for outdoor sports complex with at least 4 rectangle fields. This is just based off of kind of the needs and where we see our growth. This could be something that we look at in conjunction with an indoor complex, or it could be a separate standalone. Also pursuing intergovernmental agreement for expanded use of school facilities. That's something that we could begin having those conversations now. And then the last thing was creating an incremental plan to increase funding and levels for Parks and Recreation to median benchmarks. One piece that was, or comment that was kind of a sub point under there, was the consideration of decreasing or eliminating the discount on impact fees, which will roll us into the second item. But before I move on, if council has any other questions, I'd be happy to answer those for the workshop.
Mr. Chairman,
Can I make a comment?
Yes, sir.
All right, I just wanted to say, back to the recreation center. I think it is a unique opportunity. I appreciate the committee looking into the viability of it. Where we have kind of a shared goal with the county and potentially the school district. This is an excellent opportunity to work together and benefit our residents. I would just ask that the emphasis be on determining the needs for our citizenry as the focal point as we move forward, please.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Russ.
And Amy, that last thing that you made a comment on, can you just repeat that? So, because I was trying to follow along on here and something that you mentioned I couldn't see on here. On the slide.
It's,
Okay.
on here, it just says plan to increase funding and staff levels, but if you look at the detail under the recommendation, you will see that it talks about, trying to increase the funding and staffing levels to the median benchmark over the next 3 to 5 years. And one of the things that he had, written out underneath that point and the detailed was including consideration of decreasing and eliminating the discount on impact fees. The on the screen now is just a quick summary.
Okay.
Let me ask you something, Amy. I know we discount the impact fees for Parks and Rec by 8%. Roy said that, so we got so many things we need to achieve. When was the last time we looked at the discount? I mean, it's a possibility that we could change that a little bit. In favor of Parks and Recreation trying to achieve some of these things, and also. We're a fast growing town. Parks and Recreation have been part of that. I just thought 8% discount is good. But, we should go to another 5%, so I think that would go a long ways.
Thank you.
We last
It's something we
visited,
might want to look at some point in the future, you know.
okay, we last visited the impact fees last year, wasn't it, when we made those changes?
When we started the impact fees, you remember what the discount was initially?
I think it's always been 80% for
That's what I'm
parks.
thinking too. It's
Mhm.
always 80%. So, but might be something we can look at.
And so Amy, you were asking if we would change that 80%? Is that what?
Well, I wanted to share some information with council. I certainly would think it would be helpful if it was a lesser discount. The fees can be used for a lot of different uses. They can be used to expand and improve parks, trails, facilities, to maximize recreational opportunities and stewardship of natural resources in the community. We can use those to acquire new parkland, trails and open space, master plans, and the list just goes on and on. Two uses that we did just recently use impact fees for. This previous year, we were able to purchase a replacement skid steer. And then we also did the improvements to Shepherd Park Extension where that pond was added. So those are two examples of areas where we were able to recently use impact fees. And then there certainly are a lot of examples, expansion of custom concrete skate park, addition of a splash pad, master planning, if professional fees, new land, there's quite a long list of projects that we could potentially use impact fees for should they or were they available.
And what is your recommendation to change it to?
Well, so currently, we collect impact fees on new residential. So where we could be collecting close to between $3,700, $3,800 on a new home, we're collecting $771. So a very small percentage of that. I think if council sees the value in being able to improve some of its public spaces, I would encourage, council to lower that discount. I don't know if there's an exact percent that I would be ready to say, I think it should be this amount, or percent, but I certainly would, welcome to have those conversations with some of council.
And I think I just want to clarify that it was for new equipment, not replacement equipment.
Oh, for that,
that
I'm
was,
sorry, yes, yes.
so
And this is also just for new residential, right? Or is it like new commercial and residential that's being built?
it's on residential properties. So it'll only apply to residential properties. What I was trying to clarify is that the impact fees that we use, they cannot be used to replace equipment. We can use it to buy new equipment due to the increase in growth of our population.
When there's a break, without interrupting, I'd like to speak.
Yes.
Is that for me?
Yes.
Just to Aaron's question, this is on new properties only. It is not on people just moving around town.
Unless they're building a house.
Correct. Yeah, it's-
Unless they're building a house.
It's new residential building.
It's people moving to town, paying for their way.
Unless they're already here and they're building a house.
Do I hear a motion?
We need to send that up to full council for discussion, correct? Okay, then I'll make the motion that we move it to full council.
I'll second that.
Did I hear a second?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
All right, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
The third item on the agenda is clarification of rental policy for for for-profit events. I just wanted to get some clarification and get some feedback from council. We have had increasing number of requests from just individuals that want to rent facilities for the purpose of profit. We do not allow people to submit permits in our parks for profit unless that profit goes directly back to a nonprofit. But rentals are kind of a gray area. They're not addressed in the special event permit. So due to just the number of requests that we have recently had, an example would be someone wanting to rent the Rollins Edwards Community Center for the purpose of having a consignment sale. So just wanted to get feedback from council on how they felt about that moving forward.
I don't know. I mean, what do other municipalities do?
I think if you look, you'll find some that have no problem with it whatsoever, and then others that say, no, that's not what the purpose of these spaces.
What does the rest of council think about that?
Well,
Let me ask you a question. If it's like the YMCA they use the Rollins Center and they raise money they use it to raise money for the YMCA, right?
Yes, sir, but they're gonna fall into that nonprofit status.
Right.
So that would be allowed, or like Ducks Unlimited would be allowed because all the revenue that they generate goes back to support a nonprofit.
I think that's good. I like that. But for somebody to go in there, let's say some bookie comes in and he wants to book the Armory and have a dance over there. And he's going to reap that profit. I don't think we ought to allow that.
Okay.
I mean, that's a business.
Yes, sir.
I don't think the town will provide some individual from coming in and making money off the town. I think it's good the other way, like the YMCA or some organization like that, nonprofit coming in to help them stay afloat. I think that, to me, that's a good idea. But I know when the Armory used to be the Armory, they would rent it out to anybody. And I know some people that did that, and that was fine back then because it was an Armory. They would book bands and have parties over there and then make money off of it. But you know, if we start that, that thing will stay rented every weekend. And, you know, it'll wear it out. And we won't get any money out of it. I don't think that would benefit the town at all. That's just my opinion.
Amy, just a question if I could on this. This is a pretty complicated issue, but it is the question, should we do it or should we do it at the fees that we're currently charging? I mean, you know, I'm not saying we should, because I agree with what the mayor said, but if somebody comes in and they're having something for profit and we were to collect a percentage of what they used, what would that do to our revenue source? There's the wear and tear aspect of it as well.
I would be hesitant to recommend that just because then it almost becomes an honor system for them to, you know, letting us know what they've collected. It becomes very messy and complicated. I tend to, our policy for our parks and our park spaces is that we don't allow it. So I think it's very clean if we carry that same philosophy over to rentals. We just have had probably 3 or 4 in the last month, which is why I asked for it, you know, for us to have a discussion about it, in case those conversations did reach to you all.
So you would just write up something in our rental policy to clarify that more? Okay, and then you just bring that to us next month?
Well, I wouldn't just include it in our department policies.
Mhm.
As long as, I don't think it's anything that needs to be approved by council. I just wanted to get feedback from you guys. The movement forward, I kind of knew what you guys were.
Mr. Jackson, what are your thoughts?
I think that anything for profit should pay the full price. And we would have to talk as far as council about what we do with nonprofits that want to rent the whole thing. Take this down.
But Amy, as it stands now, and I thought if someone rented, say, the REC Center, Rollins Edwards Center, and it was for profit, they would pay a certain fee. If they were nonprofit, they would pay a lower fee. Did we make that adjustment now?
No, sir, there's just one fee for the Rollins Edwards Community Center.
Whether it's for profit or not? Yeah, I think we
Correct.
probably need to look at that then. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. There's some fees because the town incurs expenses and maintenance and all for them using it. While I think it should be full, I think they should cover the cost.
I think I'm confused now. I didn't think I was. If I come in your office tomorrow and say, I want to push the rate by $50 a head to get in, you gonna rent this space to me or not?
No, I am not. No.
So we're not renting the facility out to for profit. And do we know of?
Oh, yeah, we have thus far tried to stay away from it, as much as possible. But again, like I said, we've had 3 or 4 requests in the last month. So kind of this has always been kind of our in-house, this is how we operate. But just because of the increase in requests, knowing that, you know, the likelihood that they're not going to stop, I just wanted to at least make mention of it and make sure that everybody kind of understood what we were doing, how we were operating, make sure that everybody was in agreement if we needed to adjust appropriately.
I guess I'm seeing 3 rates. I guess I'm seeing 3 rate structures. One for nonprofits, one for residents, one for profit.
Yeah, it might complicate. things.
Because you're also getting into, do they have a business license? You also get into, are they competing with other businesses that have a business license in the town of Somerville? So I think it does open a big can of worms if we go down that road. I think there are a lot of other things we're gonna have to consider on top of that.
You're right.
I think it kind of flies in the face of it being a community center. If we wanted to get into being a public venue, I do think at that point we would be competing in the marketplace. Place would go. Restore the armory, bring it back to its place as a community center in that community. I think what you've been doing today is put it back right.
Then we will carry on as we have been. Just want to make sure. The next item on the agenda is fees and changes. Fees and changes for Parks and Recreation was presented in the budget workshop. However, there was one change. Mr. Jackson had requested that we consider a resident, non-resident fee for tennis league, similar to we do with our other athletic sport. So with that, we have made one change to the fees and changes. It was $40 for everyone. We're recommending $40 for residents, $60 for non-residents. So I just wanted to point that out that there is one change since our budget retreat that will be a part of the fees and changes that's presented with the first reading of the budget.
Well, I agree with that. I think there need to be a dichotomy between those people that are coming from outside, and those people who are residents of the town. I think Bob and I did talk about that a little bit at the last meeting we had. But I think that's only fair.
I agree.
Do we hear a motion?
I'll make a motion that we take a serious look at numbered alphabet D fees and changes.
I don't know that we need a motion on this particular item because it's going to be a part of the budget as a whole. So when you vote on the fees and changes attached to the budget, it will be included in those.
So you want us to make a motion on the 40-60?
No,
No, we
sir,
don't.
I was just letting you know that we made that one edit after the budget workshop.
So it's already in the budget for us to vote on.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
And just the last two quick items, I just want to give you guys some updates. The Justin restroom, it is here. It's not up and running yet. We still have to run some electrical plumbing, but we did finally get it. We've waited a year for it, so we're very happy to have it. And then also just a quick, I know some of you are aware that the Oak Brook Trails, some of those bridges were in pretty bad shape. Our project team has pulled those out last week and are currently working on rebuilding those as well. And that's everything that I had, Mr. Jackson, unless the committee had something for me.
Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion that we adjourn.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I'll call the Planning and Development Committee meeting to order. Ms. Shula, if I could ask you to go over the two items that we have.
Yes, sir.
Together.
Both are ordinance amendments. Both are pretty simple ordinance amendments. The first one is to amend section 5.11.2 required improvement for final plat approval. This is subsection A. And the reason is to clarify the process in relation to the permit to operate the water and sewer system. It's kind of a chicken and egg thing. Some of the water and sewer providers require TMS numbers and addresses before they'll issue the permit to operate, but you don't get those until you record the final plat. So it was kind of the chicken and egg thing. So this just clarifies that we can record the final plat before we have the PTO with the written understanding from them that they are willing to issue it once they get those TMS numbers and addresses. The second one is section 13.6.1, the pre-application conference, subsection A, mandatory pre-application conference to include all subdivision review. This is our technical review committee, TRC. Currently, it just says if you're creating new streets, but we're having more and more redevelopment take place. And I mean, we sometimes have 12, 15 lots that aren't creating new streets, but still need to be reviewed by TRC to make sure there's no issues with stormwater and other things. So this is just clarifying that it'll include all subdivision review. And if we look at it and see that there's no need for TRC, that can be waived. But it's just clarifying that as well. So two very simple ordinance amendments to clarify items that haven't come up yet because we hadn't gotten to this point in the process on a lot of things yet since the UDO has been adopted.
Thank you. I'll go ahead, Mr. Chairman, and make a motion that we approve items A and B, or we recommend approval and move it to full council.
I'll second.
All in favor, aye?
Aye.
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 Motion to adjourn.
Second,
Second.
favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Aye.
Call to order the regular meeting of the Public Safety Committee. First item on the agenda is reports from our chiefs, with the fire chief going first, Chief Melcher.
Good evening. I just want to give you all an update on the members of our department that were injured in the car accident last night. They're all home. They're all doing well. One was airlifted. We were pretty concerned with him, but he was fine. Everyone's home. We did, and again today we had another that got was sent to the emergency room from a structure fire with the county, but he's fine. He should be released here pretty soon as well. So starting off the meeting with a few injury reports. Our incidents for January, February, and March total was 1,635, which is about normal for us. Some of the significant incidents. We had the Archway Academy in March, 201 Bob Jameson Road. We also had which is starting to become more and more frequent now, is the vehicles versus buildings. The picture that you see on your right is from 407 East 3rd North Street. And the very next day, I don't have a picture of it, but the very next day was a 325 Merrimead Drive. Same situation, just wasn't nearly as bad. So, and those calls are becoming more and more frequent across the town. I think we've been to 9 in the past year. So, and those are increasing, and I think it's a nationwide thing too. So, our training, we did a total of 13,563 hours department-wide for the 3 months. Public education. So tonight, as we sit here, PD2 is recognizing our department. A couple years ago, we had Captain Archambault and Captain Varela. They both started up a program where it's called Blaze the Trail. They'll go out to the schools, and for about an hour, maybe an hour and a half, they'll read to kindergartners and first graders. It's like a mentor program. So they're getting recognition tonight. I think at Sires Elementary. And then next year, DD2 wants to bring us on for an additional school. So I think Somerville Elementary next year, we'll start to go to them and do this exact same thing. Recruitment, our recruit class 2301, we have 8 out of 15 members left. They're currently going through EMT, and their graduation is on June 30th. They're still holding strong, so hopefully we'll graduate with the full 8. Our fast track program, we've started the hiring process. Well, we started taking applications for it. I think we're up to 30 applications now, which is good. This is for already certified firefighters, and we got a lot of local applicants this time, with a few from few that are nationwide. The hiring process will begin 5th through the 8th, which I think we narrowed it down to the 6th and 7th, and the start date will be October 2nd. And that should run up to, I think, November 19th. Some other stuff, 4896, the trial phase has ended. The department did go to stay with the schedule. It passed an 80% yes to a 20% no. We've noticed a significant drop in sick leave and improved morale, which is always good. Station 6 is coming along really, really nice. We're looking at June, July completion. And then we also have the generator that's not supposed to be here until August, but they are working on some things that way we can still occupy the building, with, even though it doesn't have the generator for a month. So we're working that out now, right in the middle of hurricane season too. So. Chief Waring and Chief Woods attended Legislation Day at State House. Our collapse trailer is fully functional and is in service, and it's already been used twice. I think it was in service a full day before it had to be used, which is good. Our high water vehicle, a vehicle that we purchased last year from the 4th Street Division, it's in service now, fully painted. Our guys painted it themselves, and looks really nice. One of our additional vehicles that we added to the fleet is for our Fire Marshal's Division. It's a black Chevy Silverado. It's going to be with assigned to Captain Lee, so it's going to have a cover on the back of it. He's able to store a lot more equipment for his arson investigations and stuff like that. And then his Explorer will remain in our reserve, which now we'll have to put it in place since the wreck happened last night. So the replacement vehicle for the training vehicle that was wrecked, the Ford F-250, it's just about ready. It has to get lettered and some of the additional equipment put into it. Last but not least, we did have some promotions. John Kaler was promoted to battalion chief. We had Todd Smith promoted to captain, Jalen Strickland to engineer, and Zach Thomas to engineer. And that's it, unless you guys have any questions.
Thank you, Chief.
Yes, sir.
Welcome aboard.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for having me.
Chief Wright.
Mayor, council. Chairman. So, we've already started out another busy year. Go through some of the numbers there. As you can see, we're up to 20,341 calls as of last week. No homicides of yet. You see our traffic offenses are up. Officers are out there doing their jobs, enforcement, education, traffic collisions. They're all trending about the same as we were last year, where we're seeing our numbers go up tremendously is obviously in our mental health and also our overdoses. We've had several since this was created last week and sent to council. Next. So this is where we're at with some of our budget items for our grants. And we just took possession of almost $100,000 piece of equipment we received from the United States government, from DOJ. It's for the active shooter simulator. So you actually reacts to what the officer does, the actual verbal commands, the display of the weapon, display of the taser. And if you're shot, it'll electrocute you on your belt. So it's can raise the intensity of it and whatnot. But we have that, and we've already it's mobile, so we can move it around and put it in different scenarios, different situations, and we're just grateful for that. But obviously our grants are all moving forward. Pam has been doing a really good job with Jessica. Jessica's gonna be leaving us, Jessica Wells. She's gonna be going up to the upstate to be with her family, who her daughter's having a child, so she'll be a grandmother. So I have a grant writer who is an inspector for me, who came from another agency, who's going to be assisting Pam with grant writing now. He's been very successful in his prior agency, and he'll be a great help to help fill that void of losing Jessica, because that's probably one of the most tremendous losses I've had in a while, because just she's so well rounded, all the knowledge and experience she has. So next. So there's just too much to talk about. I'll let it sit and marinate with you for about 5 seconds per slide, but we do so much. We are literally doing events almost on the daily. We have several already for this week that we are involved in all the way up to the weekend. We had a target this past weekend. You can go to the next slide. We had a bike rodeo up there. We're going to be assisting Somerville's Safety Bike Club here Wednesday when they do their slow ride for people who have died, pedestrians and pedocyclists. Just different things. You can go through the next slide.
again, we're out there. We do it, I think, better than anybody else around. We're always involved with anything that's going on in the community. Next. We did take, the True Narc came in. That's the device we got a grant for about $50,000. That's the device that sends light scan through powdered narcotics or suspected narcotics and actually gives a immediate read back of what it is. So we've already have that in use. We're one of only a few agencies in the low country that have that, to include the DEA. You can go to the next slide. There's that. Questions, sir?
So this was prepared last week? These,
Yes, sir.
and I realize a lot can change in a week, but did I read that there are no officer vacancies?
I have 0 officer vacancies. It's because you guys are so supportive of us and they know there's raises coming. To give the political answer.
Would you like another slow pitch?
But no, sir, I know last time I was very careful not to say anything, sir, because last year I said it and
You
then I
did.
had- and then you told me and you said it, and I lost like 4 in a week. But I have 0 openings. It's been like that for quite some time. We do onboard people like immediately. We have people in the pipeline. So they're already waiting for someone to leave to come on. So we've never had that. We've never had certified police officers lined up at the door like we do now. And I say that because a lot of it has to do with obviously where we work, the support we have from you all. I say that all the time, but you're actually paying competitively now. We're going to be paying competitively, right? So we're excited about that.
And I'm not saying the money is not important to them. I'm sure it is, but it's also a reflection of the culture within Somerville Police Department, which I think is exemplary compared to some of our neighbors, compared to anyone.
It means a lot. I appreciate it. Our team's dedicated and committed to make sure our officers come first, and then we'll take care of the citizens. If you don't have officers in a good headspace, they're not being taken care of. They're not going to take care of the citizens properly. So that's my #1 priority.
Chief, Chair, we're hearing a lot of gunshots in the Robinson subdivision, primarily around, where Violet Street is. And I wanted to ask you, we put this on the agenda so that you could tell us what you could possibly do to try to.
So I've got, the proof is in the numbers.
Yeah.
And if they don't call the police, we can't do anything about it. So you might be hearing it, they may be hearing it, but we're not getting the phone calls. I'm gonna break it all down for you if you have the moment. So this year so far, the Somerville Police Department has responded to 376 calls for service in Robinson. 85% of those phone calls are self-generated property checks by law enforcement going through that neighborhood. Palmetto Park touches it, obviously. We've responded to 84 calls for service at Palmetto Park as of today. There's only been 3 calls from the Robinson subdivision for shots fired so far this year. Only 3. So they're hearing it, but they're not calling the police. And I say that because that's the way the call comes in as a shot's heard. But out of that, and I just want to put this into perspective. So far this year in the town of Somerville, as of today, the police department has responded to 77 calls for shots fired in the town of Somerville. And only 3, I say only 3, but 3 in Robinson, none in Palmetto Park. We've had 1 shooting in Robinson. We've had 1 robbery. We've had none in either Palmetto Park. We've had 2 burglaries in Robinson, 1 in Palmetto Park, 2 assaults in Robinson, 1 in Palmetto Park. Proactive policing seized 3 weapons in that area. We were in there right after the shooting and ended up arresting individuals with 3 different firearms. Civil disturbance, 12 in Robinson, 11 in Palmetto Park, 3 thefts in Robinson, 1 in Palmetto Park, and 1 vehicle theft in Robinson. So with all the clearing of trees around town, it just echoes through the night. We got calls 2 weeks ago over here. They were shooting a gun at the other end of Burlington Parkway in the county. And because of the opened up space of where Banks Construction has started the Burlington Parkway, it funneled down through T Farm, through Loudon Drive, and even through Newington. And we started getting phone calls about it. I get text messages, what's going on? It sounds like there's a war going on. It's not in our jurisdiction. So the county responded to it. But yeah, I think that has a lot to do with it, is the sound, the ambience of the night and the noise traveling a lot more easily. But we're doing our jobs. We're in there. We're being proactive. And Robin Wynn is the safest. Since I've worked here, it's the safest that I think it's been. I know there's concerns your constituents come to you.
Yeah. Well, let me give you a little history on Robin Wynn. And when I first got elected, but we went to work on it. And we got a lot of help from the police department. That was before you became chief. And we've really changed the atmosphere. But right now, the proliferation of guns is getting to be a real concern of a lot of people. And so what's happening with the gun violence is, you know, we've got it here as violence, but we're really talking about gun violence. People are afraid. And so what's happening, people who never bought a gun before is going out and buying guns. And so that's weird. So we've got a problem that's piling up on top of the problem.
Well, I'm gonna talk on that matter and I don't want to take anybody else's time, but I think it's important that you brought it up. As of January 1st, the Somerville Police Department seized 146 guns already. We seized 396 guns last year. That's illegally possessed firearms. There's more firearms on the street than we've ever had. It's also the same with our neighbors. I spoke at a gun violence symposium yesterday at the College of Charleston. And I actually was quoted talking about the same problem as these guns are available because nobody's locking their car and they're keeping firearms in those. And we had a number just today that we had pulled because we actually are talking to our PIO. We're going to be having him assist us with a public safety announcement for this month because this is gun violence month, you know, trying to make gun violence awareness month. So we're trying to make a very big point that even though we're in the little town of Somerville, we seized just under what the city of North Charleston seized in firearms last year. And that's because we're proactively going out there and that's what we need to do. But there's more than that. And obviously we know there needs to be education and mentorship with these young people, but it's the same groups of young people that are getting these guns. We had a number of guns that were stolen last year and they were stopped on a commercial bus in Florence County on I-95. And there were, I forgot how many guns, but there was dozens of guns in this bag that were being taken to Baltimore to be sold and they were stolen out of people's cars in the town of Somerville. I think we've had 77 guns stolen out of cars already this year in the town of Somerville. So that's what we're going to be talking about in the PSA.
Well, I know you're familiar with the case with one of our tenants, young lady. She got up that morning to go to work. She started her car. She left it running. She had her pistol on the seat. Somebody came by and took the car. And you got the guy who got the car, but the gun, you didn't get the gun because that's what he was after. So it happens a lot. Yeah.
I'll put this in perspective for you as well. Just 2 weeks ago, in the middle of the night before midnight, one of our officers was proactively policing like we want on Trolley Road. Saw two individuals with backpacks on the sidewalk, turned around to get out with them. A little bit of a pursuit, caught them, 10 and 11 years old. And they had a stolen gun that they had just taken out of a car in the bridges of Somerville on their person. And they were both charged criminally. That's what we're dealing with. That's what America's dealing with right now. So we're doing the best we can. Nobody does it better than us. And that's.
So what helps is if the citizens call the police if they hear gunshots.
Yes, sir. And so when I email council things that are newsworthy, which is on the regular, I don't send those unless there's evidence of gunfire because we get there, they look for shell cases, they look for holes, people telling us that their car or their house has been shot. That's when I email you guys and let you know. But it happens.
But really, so you need help from the citizens about.
Absolutely. And that's what we're going to be pleading to the citizenry.
They need to report as often as they can. I think some people feel embarrassed to call or whatever, but they need to
No,
report.
that's what we have an 911 center and we want them. We need that. And listen, I hate to say it, but numbers gets us grant money. And there's $33 million in money right now. The Department of Justice has freed up from the Bureau of Justice that we're trying to get for gun violence. So we're trying to get some funding there for the ability for NIBIN, which is if a gun fires a projectile out of it, the shell casing, you can match the shell casing up like a fingerprint with the projectile. If we were testing every single gun that we brought in, we would be able, Charleston County has, North Charleston has it, we would be able to help identify where those the derivative or where that gun originated from. So.
Chief, you said after the one shooting this year in Robin Wynn, you through proactive policing seized 3 guns in that neighborhood within a week or a few days?
2 days.
And is that proactive policing, is that done across the board or do you
sir.
send the set team in? How do you
That
decide?
team is who got those two, special enforcement team. They're the ones that seized 150 guns for last year. And they just won national honors for their efforts. But everybody is trained in proactive policing. I know you are well familiar with criminal interdiction, and that's what these officers are trained across the board in. These officers, and when I say this, when you have an incident like this, when you see someone doing something in a minor infraction, that's when they're going to stop you and they're going to find out what's going on. And if there's something more going on than what is actually happening, then it's going to progress the reasonable articulable suspicion into probable cause.
It is, and I don't want you to give away any trade secrets, but how does the set team determine what neighborhoods they're going in?
We use heat maps. We have analytics. We're able to see where everything's happening at. If there's something that happens, like we just had a rash of break-ins in a local area. I think they had 10 units that were gone into in the middle of the night. And they took appliances out of buildings being built. So over $10,000 in items were taken. So that's gonna be their focus. That'll be that area that they'll be in. But that's what they do. There's no trick to the trade. They're just getting out and talking to people. And if something's not right, they're investigating it further. And if something's good, they're let go and with a warning ticket. And
And so that's the, I guess, the logical next step. If folks in Robinwood or any neighborhood are hearing gunshots, but for whatever reason, they're not making a phone call, then, I mean, then it's not going into the analytics.
yes, sir.
So the set teams in a different neighborhood that
Yeah,
might
they are.
proactively policing. So it really, I mean, people got to make the phone call.
They got to make the phone call. And like I said, we're intelligence led. So that's how we do it. Actually, Jessica's vacancy is we're going to hire a crime analyst. It'll be the first time we've ever had one. We're going to be having a person that's dedicated to all the different traffic and trends of criminal movements throughout the low country. And our detectives have to do that now. This will be a person dedicated to that one item of police work on the back end. So, but hope that answers your question, sir.
Thank you, Chief.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Chief.
I just real quick, I had it up there about MOUs. I'll talk about the next portion. If y'all bring me back up, I will. If you don't, that's good.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
all those in favor say aye, aye, we're adjourned.
Aye.
All right, Mr. Cornett.
Evening, Mayor, members of council. Two items on the agenda for you tonight. One is a request from the Pine Forest Country Club HOA to install stop signs at the intersection of Congressional Boulevard and Glen Abbey Drive, converting that intersection into a three-way stop. I think that there was a petition submitted that was in y'all's packet. If you have a chance to look at it. That's the request.
I would move approval of the request.
Second.
All right, we got a first and a second.
And I assume, is this a recommendation to full council? I can't remember. Is
There's no recommendations. I'm just forwarding the request.
Well, in the past, when we've taken these up, have we just simply given you feedback or have we referred it to full council?
I think it just comes from the committee as feedback.
And
And your motion was appropriate. Yeah.
Any other discussion? Okay, we got a first and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Passes.
Second item is a kind of an unusual request. The Dorsey Tire Group recently purchased the suburban disposal property off of near the town subworks committee off of Suburban Lane, which is off Miles Road. They're a transportation company that does tire work on different transportation companies, vehicles, the Port Authority, other repairing trucks, trailers, chassis, and they're going to open up operations here. The next 4 or 5 years, I expect to have about 100 jobs in that facility and potentially another 50 jobs after 6 years. But their request is to for the town to and assist in paving the extension of what is labeled Yancey Street, but extension of Pine Street into their site from Yancey Street, about 440 linear feet of road. And they're requesting $229,000 for this. I understand the funds aren't there in town's coffers right now. So we don't even have any budget for our own roads. This is our road too. But it's unpaved. They expect a lot of truck traffic coming in and out, obviously with their business. It was suggested possibly this could be sent the request to our CTC for it to help with funding, since I know the town doesn't have any available. Again, forwarding the request for discussion and feedback.
Mr. Cornett, if I may, did y'all have any discussion? Is this in Dorchester County?
This is in Somerville town limits. the
It-
facility.
But it's
Any
also
discussion with the
Dorchester.
Economic Development group, Dorchester County Economic Development, and
No.
maybe county council?
Don't think they've talked to John's office. I think it did mention that in our meeting though, that somebody to reach out to with them, but I haven't heard back if they've done that or not.
But this road is owned by us?
Yes, ma'am. It's a rock road. And it is in the town right away.
So this is the old suburban property and it has Dorsey purchased it or is it under contract? Do we know?
I believe they purchased it.
I would think that a conversation with John Truelock's office would be worth having. I mean, there are limited opportunities for county economic development within the town limits. There's very little industrial zone property in the town limits, but this is.
That feedback, I would recommend they talk to John Truelock's office about.
I mean, there may be some things, I mean, you're correct. There's not a lot of money in the town coffers, but there may be an opportunity for it's our road for the town to assist in improving it without writing a check. But for a industrially zoned property to be developed in the county, I know realize it's in the town limits, but to have it be developed in the county and the developer owner not having talked to John Truelock is surprising to me. So I would think there would be an opportunity for collaboration, Mr. Tewksbury.
Collaboration's important, sir.
I've heard that.
Now, in regards to our contribution, I'm assuming our contribution is going to be the long-term ownership and maintenance of this facility. So there's a dollar figure associated, so we have skin in the game if they can get it built.
We do, and if it is improved, our maintenance costs will be less versus having a dirt road with a lot of traffic on it.
Well, there may be some incentive then to, I mean, maybe not, certainly not pay for all of it, but to pay for something.
I think I read in the paper where they bought that thing from Republic Industries, and that's who bought it from Haney.
Right.
So they must have already bought it.
Yeah, I still call it suburban. I still.
Yeah, that's where, they have those closing statements in the paper on Sunday. I think I didn't ask Kane, he still keeps up with what they're doing, but, he still owns land out there. 4 acres, I think, but anyway, I think they bought his shop and the 2 shops he had out there. And
If it's going to be easier for us to maintain, it's sort of like years ago, the whole thing about Briarwood Lane, if you remember that.
I do.
You haven't completely suppressed it. But if it's going to be cheaper for us to maintain it, if it's improved, seems like we ought to be able to, short of writing a check for the whole thing, there ought to be things that we can do to see if we can help get it improved.
Is the committee be in favor of submitting a request to CTC to help the funding?
I would make a motion that we submit a request to CTC to help with the funding and that we encourage the new owner to also contact Mr. Truelove's office.
Second.
Okay, we got a first and second on that. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right. Anything else from members? Nothing. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second.
All in favor of adjournment?
Aye.
Okay, Ms. Rhonda, finance.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. You have your April financial report in front of you. There's not a lot of surprises in this report. We are starting to get a good kind of end up our business license collection as far as our normal business license cycle. So that was probably the biggest revenue collection we had for the month. So total revenues for the month was about 4.2 million, year to date 28. Our expenditures were pretty much on target. The capital expenditures include some of the fire station expenses and some of the capital that we approved in March, I believe. And some of those were ARPA funds, which will be transferred into the general fund at a later time. Any particular questions on? Summary.
Rhonda, do you expect business license fees to be greater in May than April or less?
Less probably. The bulk of what we're really waiting on now. So our business license cycle for regular businesses ended, would due April 30th.
Right,
But we have a penalty-free 30-day period.
Right.
To make. So I think
some people, when they see a penalty-free 30-day period, that moves the deadline from April 30th to May.
Right.
30th. I've heard about these people.
You've heard about those people. Okay. So I expect we will get a significant portion in May, but then our biggest portion of the insurance business licenses that are handled by the state will come in June. We're a little bit ahead of our first disbursement that we got in May than we did last year. So anything else on this particular page? The revenues, again, this is just a little more detail. We're pretty much finished with property taxes. We'll get a little bit of money that kind of dribbles in, mainly prior year. License permits, I think we've exceeded a lot of our revenue line items. I know under something as simple as tree permits, I've got to kind of look at that category and make sure there's no tree mitigation fees that are in that category that need to be classified somewhere else. But I think we're in pretty good shape on that. Municipal court fees, we're right on target. So hopefully we can end that up. And the same thing with state revenues. We're a little bit over, mainly in local option sales tax in Berkeley County, which is a real win for those citizens and for us. Any comments on that page? To wind up revenues with miscellaneous.
Rhonda,
Yes, sir.
excuse me, could I ask you to back up a second?
Sure.
I mean, something just caught my attention. Building permits,
Yes, sir.
annual is $950 and through 4 months it's $950. Year-to-date actual, I can't read this.
It's a fiscal year to this.
So, yeah, so year to date, we've just exceeded
My
our,
bad.
okay, that's fine.
That's okay.
Back to miscellaneous. I don't think there are any surprises in this particular area. Obviously our interest income is up because of the rates. I have not actually physically transferred any of the transfers in from A-tax and a little bit in ARPA that we're going to transfer in. And stormwater. Any other questions on that? Impact fees. I want to redesign this report actually before next year, because to me, it's just a little bit confusing. I'd like to lay it out a little bit better. But we did get a little bit in impact fees in April, totaling 114,000. We are, what I usually do is transfer the Station 6 construction into this fund at periodic times during the year. So I will be transferring a little bit in that fund. So obviously we've spent significant amounts of impact fees, primarily related to Station 6, which is why we spent more than we had taken in for the year, but we had that in fund balance. Any other questions? I did redesign this form because I thought it was a little bit easier to split out hospitality and local accommodations. Previously, it was combined, and it might not have confused y'all, but it confused me. So anyway, you have your local hospitality tax, in which we have regular expenditures out of that fund, to include some of our Team 6, our PIO officer, and some other things. So year to date, we have collected $4.8 million in hospitality tax. Our budget is $5 million. Safe assumption that we'll exceed that. I think next year, I think I budgeted $6 million for that particular category. Local accommodations, just by our hotels that we have now in the town limits, that number is going up to, we do not have any regular expenditures allocated to this fund. So year to date, we have taken in 356,000. Any questions? Stormwater, again, for this fund, this is collected by the county. We're pretty much at the end of the stream of revenue for this particular fund. Year to date, 2.5 million, over budget by 178,000. And expenses are right on target. Again, the back truck is included in the regular expenditures. I think we approved funding that out of fund balance. At this point, I have it in regular expenditures. Any other questions, comments? Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, next we're gonna have our PIO come up and do a brief description of a drone project proposal.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Exciting moments. My first presentation to y'all, so pat my back there. But no, today I just want to present to y'all quickly a proposal for building a drone program here in the town of Somerville. Just to quickly go over introduction, really it's to improve our public services here when it comes to GIS, our communications, and then also our emergency responses as well. To start off, what are drones? If you're unfamiliar, they're unmanned aerial vehicles. They have military origins, that they have become more useful for other different uses when you look at marketing and communications to 3D scan and thermal imaging, and then the military still uses the drones quite a bit. Benefits of a drone program are far and wide, but a few to go over is efficiency, cost savings, enhanced safety, environmental friendliness, and flexibility. It really, you're saving a lot of money when you have a drone that can go up in 5 seconds rather than, for example, the police department calling a helicopter to come in. You can use a drone instead. Some proposed, but not limited to, applications for this drone program here for the town of Somerville is the public safety and emergency response, infrastructure maintenance and inspection, GIS, environmental monitoring and conservation, and then communications. To go through each of those quickly, we look at public safety and emergency response. Really the police department actually has funds to get their own drone, and they are in the process of doing that. But some of the things that they would do under this program, and some things that they're going to do within this drone program, is search and rescue operations, which they already do, locating missing persons, and really seeing live what's going on and being able to quickly find someone if they're lost in the woods using thermal imaging. It's pretty quick. Aerial surveillance, traffic monitoring, and then disaster assessment if a hurricane comes through, and seeing, what's going on and keeping people safe, but still being able to do the job. If we look at fire services, fire departments use drones to monitor where a fire has started, to keep some personnel safe, and they can use a drone instead, and search and rescue to be able to find someone without using a person for that search and rescue. Infrastructure inspection and maintenance. This is looking at bridges, road inspections. You're looking at lines and roofs and a bunch of different things you can use drones for, but they have really advanced technology nowadays where you can 3D scan and really look at some of issues when it comes to infrastructure. And I know the city of Charleston uses drones for the Ravenel Bridge, and they usually take a drone up there every day to go check it out. And then last is communications, and this one's pretty simple. It's photography and videography to use for our website. For example, I have my own personal drone, and I've done a Flower Town recap. I've done development before and afters, usually more before, haven't really got to the after parts yet. We did a before and after of tennis court resurfacing, which was the nice view of that. And then we have a new website coming relatively soon, and a lot of our content will be able to get through that drone photography and videography as well. And then another really big application of the drones would be our GIS and our with Bryce and his team. GIS is a fast growing field. I know Bryce is definitely more educated in that than I am, but in a nutshell, it's going to use in-depth analysis, enhanced planning, and increase mapping efficiency for the town. We'll get real-time aerial imagery, terrain analysis, land use zoning analysis, asset management and infrastructure planning, environmental monitoring assessment, and then lastly is the reduce the need of consultants to do work for extra projects. So, you could use a drone for a stormwater infrastructure without the assistance of a consultant. We can do that here within the town. For the next slide, one of the drones that we are looking at purchasing is a US made drone. It's the company is called Parrot, but really this drone, as you can see, there's a bunch of stuff to it, but in a nutshell, it has thermal camera, really in-depth zoom capabilities, really long fly time, very safe. It's dust and rain resistant, so that it's not gonna it's going to stay up in the sky, and there's really no concerns with it. And then it's also very smart in the fact that you won't be able to lose it. It won't fly off by itself if there's any misconnection. It's just going to fly back to where you took it off. So overall, I did a little bit of a drone program cost estimate here, and as you can see, it starts with the drones. And so you have the drone hardware and accessories, and the police department is getting the actual Parrot Anafi USA government edition. They are getting that drone, but I also recommend that the town, for its staff and all the other departments, get that drone. This drone is the one you just saw that has the thermal imaging and that really in-depth capabilities to do a lot of the stuff that we need to do when it comes to infrastructure inspection. And that will be Bryce's baby for sure. And then the second one is the Parrot Anafi AI. This is a smaller drone. It is a very smart drone, but it's not going to be the one you use for thermal imaging. This one's going to be used for communications, or for example, code enforcement, and using it to look into if someone's not following code in a safe manner. Most of us are familiar with DJI drones. That's what I currently have. It's the leading drone market, and they definitely lead the market. But the reason we are not considering DJI is the use or the possibility for data concerns. And so I am recommending that we continue with American-made drones to just make sure our data and, encryption safe. When it comes to the drone program, we are going to need to have FAA certified drone pilots. And I definitely recommend within the first year that we have hopefully 5 that are, that they're licensed and able to fly. And hopefully that grows, but I envision at least 1 pilot per department that would use drones. And then that can grow from there. And that way we have this fleet and we will be able to do a lot and save a lot of time and a lot of money. And then, you have the maintenance costs and the training cost and everything, when it comes to programs, further programs that there could be, but the overall estimated year 1 cost would be 23,000. And then the year 2 plus cost. So every year after that would be about 1,000. So there is a higher upfront cost, but that's just because of the drones. After that, it's a pretty low cost. But as you can see, I'm looking to pursue funding opportunities for this program, and there's plenty out there. And so I am here, presenting this information, requesting permission from council to search and pursue funding opportunities to build and, bring this program to the town of Somerville. And that's it. Any questions? Thank you.
Next, for financial requisitions, authorization to issue a purchase order to Motorola Solutions in the amount of $31,185 for radio management and licenses. Request from Communications Department. Funds to come from budgeted communications maintenance funds.
Mr. Mayor, I'd move authorization of the purchase order.
Second.
Motion made and seconded, for these funds. All in favor, signify by raising your right hand, voting aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise, ayes carry.
Authorization to issue a purchase order to Amchar Wholesale Incorporated in the amount of $34,828.50 for 35 FN-15 SRP G2 rifles. Request from Police Department. Funds to come from federal drug funds.
Make a motion that we do this.
Second.
Motion made and seconded, we buy these rifles from the police department, come out of the drug funds. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of this, signify by raising your right hand, vote aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise, ayes carry.
Authorize the town administrator to enter into a contract effective July 1st, 2023 with Russell Landscape for landscape services for the I-26 199 interchange, Bear Island Road and Main Street medians in the amount of $90,390. Funds to come from budgeted hospitality tax funds. Sealed bids were collected and the request is from the Parks and Recreation Department.
Mr. Mayor, I'd move that we authorize the town administrator to enter the contract.
Second.
Motion made and seconded, give the administrative authority to enter into this contract. Any discussion?
Yes, I would like to ask the question. Is this the same company that we've had in the past, or is this a new company?
Any other discussion? None, all in favor of this, signify by raising your right hand, voting aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise, ayes carry.
Authorization to issue a purchase order to CDWG in the amount of $35,866.40 for the purchase of 4 Juniper Ethernet switch and accessories for the fire department. Funds to come from Fire Equipment American Rescue Plan funds.
Mr. Mayor, I'd move authorization of the purchase order.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of this, signify by raising your right hand, voting aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise, ayes carry.
Authorization for Town Administrator and Chief of Police to enter into updated memorandum of understandings with the Dorchester County Sheriff's Office Charleston County Police Department, North Charleston Police Department, and Mount Pleasant Police Department.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Motion made and second that we give the administrator and police chief to enter in this memorandum of understanding. All in favor of this? Any discussion on this? Everybody know what this is? No discussion? All in favor of this, signify by raising your right hands. Vote aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise. Motion carried.
So real quick, before we go on to the next matter, one that was not put on there, and I did it on purpose because it's not permission to enter into an agreement. But I would like permission for you all to allow me to go into discussions with District 2 School and the Charleston Aviation Police Department. Where I'm going with this is a recent instance we've had with weapons in schools. Charleston County Aviation Authority Police Department has a bomb dog that could smell the odor of black powder and the different chemicals for that particular, for different devices and whatnot. And I've talked to the superintendent and also to Aviation Authority and to Elliott Summey, and they would like to provide that service to the town of Somerville schools that are in the town in District 2. So I have the MOU. I just want permission to be able to go to their school board and try to see if we can facilitate that. It's not really a Somerville police matter, but we would be the ones calling for them. We'd be the ones that would be augmenting that facilitating that dog being on campus.
Go and do what? Give Doug permission for that.
do good.
Fine with everybody for Doug to do that? Okay. We don't need a motion. on that.
Chief, are you actually signing an MOU with neither one of those? Okay, all right. Okay,
All right, you got
All right.
permission, council permission, go ahead. Okay, which one's the next one? E?
Authorization for Town Administrator and Chief of Police to enter into memorandum of understanding with the Myrtle Beach Police Department for assistance during Atlantic Beach Bike Fest during the Memorial Day weekend of 2023.
Make a motion that we do this, Mr. Mayor.
I'll second.
Motion made and second. Any discussion? Here none, all in favor of this, signify by raising your right hand, vote aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise, the ayes carry.
Authorization for Town Administrator to execute the Rural Infrastructure Authority Grant Agreement in the amount of $340,422 for Springview Lane drainage improvements.
Make a motion, we authorize this expenditure. Or grant agreement.
I'll second.
Okay, motion made and second. Any discussion? All in favor of this, signify by raising your right hand, vote aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise, the ayes carry. We've been waiting on this for a lot of years. Well, y'all glad to see it.
Authorization to issue a change order to Gel Engineering in the amount of $9,400 for work on a section of sidewalk along Water Edge Drive, not included in the original scope of the Ashley River Preserve project, but needed for connectivity. The request is from the Parks and Recreation Department, funds to come from fund balance and reimbursed with Oak Brook TIF bond proceeds.
I'll make the motion for approval on this.
Second. Motion made and second. Any discussion? No discussion. All in favor signify by raising your right hand. Vote aye.
Aye.
Opposed likewise. Ayes carry.
Considerations for FY 24 proposed budget.
Well, just wanted to kind of connect the dots from our last meeting at Budget Retreat and hopes that we can have a budget ordinance that reflects everyone's wishes on Thursday at council for first reading. So just wanted to start with our revenues, just as a kind of a brief recap. I didn't make any changes to these revenues as we discussed at Budget Retreat. But given the 3 years, you can kind of see that they're modest increases. Happy to explain any of those again if you have any questions. Okay, next, Beth. The capital recommendations, We did discuss a lot of things at budget retreat, so I finally wanted to just kind of summarize kind of where we landed on some of these items. We had a significant amount of ARPA expenditures. I don't believe any of those really changed. We did add some local accommodations, ATAX fund balance on a couple of items. And then we refined some of the general fund balance suggested uses, which we'll kind of cover in a little more detail in a little bit. Hospitality tax, we have some expenditures out of there and some out of impact fees. And of course, the stormwater, the pipeliners, they'll come out of fund balance. They really aren't a capital item, more of an operational item, but if they don't have operational funds, we'll pull that out of fund balance on those items. Any particular concerns, questions?
Rhonda, and maybe I'm missing it, but did we find the funding for either of the sidewalk projects?
I put 350,000 in there as under general fund balance. Just as a, I guess, a placeholder or to be allocated to a specific project later. I'm hoping that the state will have some funding for one of our projects.
Well, we talked about one in particular that we thought the state might be more likely to fund.
Right. And so the one that had been on the books the longest that y'all talked about was Lee Street.
Correct. And you know, it's the thing about a budget retreat, there's different discussions going on back and forth and not everything gets solidified sometimes, but I did recall a discussion with Councilman Jenkins and I think others about the sidewalk on, I'm gonna get the street wrong, but the sidewalk in front of the Squirrel Inn possibly being funded by the local accommodations tax. I don't know if we looked at that. I don't.
Distinct, I mean, that's a distinct possibility. Anything I think in the
That's Fifth South Street, Bill.
A lot of numbers and directions.
And I think that that is something that we can address without it being part of the budget. We're not required to have a budget on the accommodation. So I just wanted to get something in the budget for some sidewalks, since we did have a significant amount. It's not allocated to a particular project as far as I'm concerned.
That's how we've always done it. We
Okay.
kept it separate from the operating budget.
Any other questions on those items? So next, so this is the same format that we discussed at budget retreat. I had sent out some information kind of telling you that I made a few adjustments, mainly eliminating the additional clerk position in court. I had an error correction on a retirement calculation for the fire department. I added a couple of smaller items to communications or police that were really operational and not capital. They were presented as capital. They really were not a capital item. Ended up with approximately 10,000 that I actually took out of non-departmental, so that this pretty much represents the same budget that we looked at budget retreat. We had talked about the possibility of using some fund balance for some capital expenditures. So where we landed is y'all, it tossed around the idea of an additional 2%. This budget that is balanced at this point has an 8% increase, 8% bucket pool of funds for each department. I kind of just laid out some options of how you might want to use fund balance if there's some items on here that are important to you. The additional 2% represents about 590,000. I don't think there's enough slippage, especially according to Chief Wright, that he's fully staffed. There's not enough slippage in the budget to, I think, to cover something like that. That's a pretty significant amount. Police cars, obviously just under 1.5 million. The sidewalk project allocation of 350. The other two capital projects from the police department are body worn cameras and in-car cameras. Some of that will be grant funded. I just don't know exactly how much I'll be able to provide for that, should we need that. So I would love to hear some input and some guidance as I'd like to have, put an ordinance together in the next couple of days.
Well, I would say, first of all, I think you and Lisa have done a wonderful job throughout this entire process. It's been probably as transparent a budget process as I've been involved in since I've been here. I have traditionally not been overly concerned about spending or allocating part of the budget to be paid out of fund balance, because we are very conservative in our revenue projections and we always tend to exceed them. We're thriving local economy. When I see, I realize police cars are replaced every 3, 4, 5 years, however often we're doing it. But when I look at this $2.6 million out of fund balance, obviously there's one item that is, not capital and it's recurring year after year after year. And that's the additional 2% to be used. It's not apparently not a 2% across the board pay increase, but additional 2% to be used for pay adjustments for some employees, but not all. If it's the will of council to do that, to essentially raise salaries, compensation, if you will, by 10%, not across the board, but in general, rather than 8%, I just feel pretty strongly that 590,000 should not come from fund balance. That's a change in people's base pay that's going to be there this year, next year, the year after that, the year after that, and it just shouldn't come from fund balance. There's an argument for the same with police cars, I realize, but we do tend to get 4 or 5 years of a police car at least. So if we're not satisfied with the 8% and we want to go to 10%, I think we got to cut somewhere. Is my opinion.
I'll just kind of piggyback off of Councilman McIntosh's comments. If I recall last year when we were doing the budget, we were also in jeopardy of having our bond rating as a town decreased, and some of the information shared by our financial advisor or the bond unit was that if you use your fund balance for reoccurring items such as a pay increase, that raises a flag. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And it can jeopardize us from our financial position. And I certainly want to avoid that, just like we did then. I think our employees deserve increase at the 10% level. And I appreciate y'all trying to work to get it in and fit it in the way you did. And I would just hope that as a council, as we go through the year, if some of those ultra conservative, I believe Councilman McIntosh said they were very conservative estimates, begin to recognize themselves as being conservative, and we get revenues that are consistently larger, that maybe we look at evaluating an additional 2% somewhere in the middle of the year. As soon as we could recognize that, I would just encourage us to do that, because our folks are behind.
Well, one of the things that Madam Administrator and I've talked about, and I've talked with other members of council about, is that I do think that, both Lisa and I are familiar with municipalities, both smaller and larger than us, that a mid-year budget is just the norm. And, I think that, the idea of, 10% is the goal, and we're going to fund as much of it as possible without raising taxes in the initial budget. But if we have the ability to make mid-year adjustments, we should.
I like that myself, and I think that's on me to make sure the audit gets done in a timely fashion that we can, maybe we're kind of in a position where I can say, yes, we're gonna do that.
There's no way we're gonna let you take the fall by yourself, or maybe at all, for untimely audits.
Well, there are reasons, but like I say, I don't know. We did what we could do, and I hope that we can improve, just like we would improve a lot of processes. I hope we improve that process as well.
I think y'all did a great job. And I know it's been a headache for you and Lisa. I've been here watching y'all stressed out and, to try to get to that 10% and to get to a few other things. And, it wouldn't work. And, you know, without a tax increase and with Councilman McIntosh wanting to decrease, you know, we were kind of in a bad situation, but you know, nobody wanted to increase, that's for sure. And I think our employees will be real happy. I do. With 8%, because I worked for the town for a long, long time, and Lisa and I were talking today. I don't ever remember an 8% raise with all my years with the town, so.
Chief Waring III would have remembered that 8% raise.
I would.
Well, I'll put a proposed budget ordinance together for Thursday, and Lisa and I will get together and see what, hearing your comments, put something together appropriately. And I know that the employees appreciate the concern and the effort, and I think that everybody will be pleased in the end. Any other comments? Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Consideration of solid waste collection fee for fiscal year 24.
Again, this, talked about this at the budget retreat, and this slide kind of offers three scenarios for the solid waste collection fee. Currently charge $145.68 per unit. I think we talked about increasing it. If we do not increase it, see, there'll be a $247,000 deficit. Thank you. We'd have to find the budget to subsidize that somewhere. If we increase it to 161.10, that will be enough to cover the contract and our fees to Charleston County for recycling, but it will not cover our capital costs. We've kind of included for equipment from the street department to collect bulky and yard debris. By increasing it to 176.25, we cover all three components of the expenditures that may come out of that revenue. So it does, by doing that, it frees up capital costs out of the general fund or fund balance for that one department. So the kind of the three scenarios, keep it the same. There'll be a deficit. Go to 161.10. There will be a deficit in capital, and we go 176.25. It will be fully funded.
What is the fee in the county?
Sorry?
Do we know what?
$75. That's just operates their landfill and convenience sites. They don't offer curbside. So I don't know what the market is for if you were to contract your own company to come pick your garbage up. I think it's much more than
It's higher.
what this would be. Yeah. It's a good deal even at the highest rate. Because we pick up garbage, recycling, bulky waste, and yard debris, all four types of waste.
That's a collection fee.
Yeah. Collection fee. Any questions?
Remind me again, Mr. Cornett, the 241,000 shown on the surplus area, that's going to be used for equipment. Does it also get used for maintenance activities on the roads? Like
No, sir.
pothole
It's
patching
just,
or just for capital equipment?
our street department in-house picks up yard debris and bulky waste. And I've got that equipment on an 8-year rotation. So if we replace it now, that equipment every 8 years, that would cover that on an annual basis.
And we've, correct me if I'm wrong, but we've never in the past with the solid waste collection fee, it's been tied to our curbside. We've not tried to pay for yard debris and bulk waste through this fee.
Well, when we increased it last time, it was included. It was. I don't think we've used those funds. I think we used impact fees for the last purchase of street department equipment. But it's there. That's what it was intended there and presented to you guys that way.
And I think what actually absorbed that, because you did intend to have those funds available, but when we rebid the contract, it absorbed those additional funds. Is that correct?
Well, the contract doesn't start until August 1st.
Okay.
Do you have any idea? I mean, every residential household in the town uses the solid waste, curbside solid waste pickup, I presume, practically everyone. Do you have any idea what percentage of our citizens use our services for yard debris or bulk pickup?
I don't have, I know it's well over 60%.
Really?
Yeah, it's used a good bit. Some neighborhoods use it more than others, like the older neighborhoods.
You know, I grew up in George Mile Country Club, but it wasn't in the town. And maybe that's my mindset. I've never used yard debris pickup or bulk waste by the town. I mean, that's what you go to the dump for. It's fun to go to the dump, chief.
If you have a truck. I have used both. And I think it's a great benefit for our citizens.
Here is downtown where there's a lot more tree coverage. Older neighborhoods with the older trees, it gets used more than the clear cut cookie cutter neighborhoods that are more new.
Well, just from my perspective, a user fee, this is using a user fee model versus using our general fund, which everybody contributes to, but not everybody's using that benefit. So to me, this is more of a user fee model. So I would, I like the option 3 because that instead of hurting us in the general fund, we're proactively using it, the fee from the people who actually use the service.
I agree. And also it just, it helps with, not using that money out of another fund. We can help, pay for something else that needs to be paid for. I mean, 241, I mean, we're showing the option 1 of a shortage of 247,000. Do we know what what our shortage was like this past year?
I don't know offhand, no.
But the shortage is much greater because of the new contract.
Right. Yeah. But I would assume that there was a shortage this past year because I think we talked about this last year, how we thought it was going to be just breaking even or it was going to cost us a little bit.
We had a fee increase, when June 21. Well, they came back last year and asked for additional fee increase.
There was a 6%.
Yeah.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
That occurred a little earlier this year or late last year.
This is significant. I can't remember the percentage. Starts in August, but it's significant increase.
It goes from about $9 per household to $12.45 per household on August 1st.
It seems to me we're providing an exceptional service for the community at a very reasonable price. And I'm speaking of option 3. And I think if we go back far enough we know what it's like not to do some of these services and what the issues that creates. So I believe we should move forward with option 3. It's a
Well,
good deal for our citizens.
as some of y'all may have guessed, I would be more of a proponent for option 2 because I believe that option 2 is a true user fee. Everybody uses it, everybody pays, but I feel like I've been late to the party if 60% of households are using our bulk pickup.
Questions?
Do we need to take any action?
Well, it sounds like we're leaning toward option 3, and what will happen is we will include that figure in our budget ordinance. Because that's where we set the solid waste collection fees in our budget ordinance. Mr. Mayor, we do not have a need for an executive session.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion to adjourn and second. All in favor?